Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Austin, how are you doing?
Doing great, Andrew. How about you?
Everything is well. Crazy markets, intense times, shortages, like we've been talking about, becoming more reality every day. Um, Today we're gonna do a little catch up on a couple things. We're gonna talk about some commodities, and we're gonna shine a light about the energy crisis in the UK and in Europe, um, and just kind of once again not just an overall theme of what's happening because it puts climate change into context. It puts solar and green power into context, which of course I'm a big fan of this electric future of the world, but also I haven't drank the Kool-Aid in thinking that it happens tomorrow. There's decades of work still to be done. Maybe that's a bit, I'm being conservative, but we're seeing now the issues affecting Europe, especially with shortages, supply chain issues that's happened over here already as well. And this is going to continue to get worse as different countries pursue authoritarian, draconian measures. We see massive people unemployed at fire stations, police stations, the military, hospitals, as the problem is being further expedited and the issues becoming larger. One would almost think on purpose, but it's who knows? It's clown world. It's very strange, and that also, once again, it has to be reflected in markets. Let's talk just quickly about this this energy crisis in the UK in particular, and I have an article here. If we could pull up, and we see that. The UK has been in talks to kind of console people or tell people not to panic. The cost of energy has been going through the roof there, and this is the right response. You say, listen, it's just a short-term issue, it's a short-term problem. Of course, there's many who believe that Russia is behind this as well, taking full advantage because of Nord Stream 2. Who knows? Anything's possible, and that's the right answer to say to people: don't panic. Because panic is never a good thing. But at the same time, we've been over here telling people these are issues to be very concerned about, not in part because we're so brilliant, but because they told us that this would be the case. The World Economic Forum is well funded. It's all of these major groups, and they've warned us about these key themes. It's food shortages, supply chain issues, cybersecurity. Of course, the pandemic issue was their number one push that they'd been talking about for years before it occurred, where they ran scenarios months before of what a pandemic would look like. So these are all scenarios being run out and being done for whatever reason. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't need to join in the why they're doing it. We just need to reflect that when they put out news saying they're doing something, they're probably going to do it. But what does this mean for the markets? What does it mean? What's going on? It means that all these people that were running around saying that fossil fuels are dead, we're not using oil and gas anymore, we're not. It is absolutely insane. It's utter nonsense. And that's me being a big fan of this big pivot and big shift that will happen. But it takes time to do any of these things, and these lofty goals that have been put out there. Maybe they're attainable. I don't know. The weather stations can't predict the weather in any decent rate, yet they're going to try to pretend to tell you they're going to be net zero carbon in 20 years. Like it's silly. If someone looks at big data, it really is silly. The amount of factors one needs to look at, but it's good PR. It's good news. It's good entertainment for people to yap about. But if you're an intelligent investor, you're someone who's critical of information and you're well reasoned, you'll see there's a big opportunity in the energy space, and that encompasses all of it. Oil and gas is part of it. Uranium is certainly part of it. We've talked about this before. We've seen a big push in uranium lately. Anyways, jump in. Give me some of your thoughts here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a couple of key takeaways. Number one being there's obviously a crisis when you look at the gas prices in the UK and how they've shot up as the UK has kind of transitioned to its post-pandemic restrictions and getting people back to work and getting society back up and running again, which the UK has done rather effectively on the backside of the COVID crisis, at least more effectively than I would say that we've done in Canada or some parts of the United States have done. So you have, and what I would suggest would be a natural uptick in the amount of gas and energy that's being used. You compile that with, it's been as hilarious as this is to say, it's not been a very windy summer in the UK. So their wind turbines are not generating the same number or the same amount of energy that they're used to them generating in a year, which is interesting as well. And this has all sort of led the skyrocketing prices in gas, which we can see on that chart there. To give anyone a gauge, that the very top of the chart there is 350 pounds per megawatt hour. Today, that is 613 Canadian dollars, which is just absolute insanity. So it's no wonder that two of the UK's top fertilizer producing plants have shut down. And the market in the UK is now expecting to see food shortages, especially in the poultry industry with chicken and turkey, of which I to this number was surprising to me as well. 20 million birds a week through the UK's poultry industry. They're expecting to see massive shortages on that front, and they could see them starting as early as 5 to 7 days from today, which is craziness when you think about it. But that it just goes to highlight that, there's a very clear shift in this direction, but how we do it has to be sustainable. We can't just flip the switch immediately because, if you have a summer where you're not getting a lot of wind, your energy prices are going to skyrocket because you're not generating enough. The most interesting thing to me, though, was seeing the Department of Energy in the UK coming out and saying that they're not complacent, but they do not expect supply emergencies this winter, which is kind of head-scratching when literally everyone else is saying they're expecting to see supply shortages this winter. So I thought that was a very interesting part of it all as well.
Yeah, and part of that could be that they just know, well, we might have to buy it off someone that's going to cost even more. But moving forward, we have a real problem. And it's like, we can borrow money over the short term to cover this short-term issue. But once again, we live in a world where the semantics are critical. And you can read it in fact checks. You can read it in way people phrase things. They use specific words and terms for very specific reason. But the UK it's kind of set this perfect storm because they've cut down was it 15 power plants in the last 4 years? They set this up pretty horribly. And I think it's that they're importing energy from overseas, which is about 60% of their energy import is from overseas. And you just shake your head and think, where's your solution? What's the solution here? What are you going to do here? And it is this big shift where we're going to use renewable, but okay, so where is all this giant infrastructure for renewable? Where is it being done? So unfortunately, like most things, there's lofty goals. And then if one was to evaluate many of these governments, the way I would evaluate a management team, you'd never put a penny to them because they're not competent. These are not the swiftest people in the world. I mean, people call them the elite, but these are certainly not. Can they get the job done? They've got horrible milestones for getting anything done. And that's not just the people, but also, I mean, government in and of itself. I mean, the system where one party blocks the other one, and this, I mean, it's tough to get anything done. But that's a reflection of today. But this stalemate of, okay, we don't have the solutions yet, and we're kind of midstream off. We're going one way, pivoting, but not fully committed. Like BlackRock's not fully committed to, as much as they pretend, the green energy story, because they're not putting money as much as they should into mining. That's where it all comes from. The other thing, and we don't have a chart on this, but I had it, but reach out to me if you'd like it. Coal usage in China, through the roof. Through the roof. So coal being used, it's having a great heyday. So your China and third world countries are still ramping up on the use of coal. And then people over here are supposed to pretend that that's not a big deal. Well, at least we're not doing it. And it's like, we're not the problem. And it's nice to do things that are small gestures, like you ride your bike to work. I mean, it means nothing in the context of the world. It has no effect, but it might make you feel good. I'm part of the solution. And this is the distinguishing factor between large numbers compared to individuals. And in large numbers, and we've talked about before, even if all Canadians stopped driving their car, it would be meaningless as far as the carbon issue is concerned. It would have no impact.
Yeah. I think it's something like if everyone in North America stopped using only use renewable energy immediately tomorrow, it would the total effect it would have reducing carbon emissions would be between 6 and 7%.
That sounds about maybe a bit
I can't
more
remember the
depending on
exact
business.
number, but it's something to that effect where you're like, wait, if we all did this, we're only making that big of an impact on it. So it's shifting and changing the way you look at it and understanding that you're not going to make this quantum leap in one day, that you can't just abandon oil and gas or in the rear view mirror. Well, I mean, you could, but you'd be living in the Stone Age.
Yeah. It's going to cause problems. And this is what makes me think that, they're either exceptionally incompetent or they're literally trying to cause a crash. And it could be either one. I mean, once again, I try not to get into the world of, conspiratorial, but if you're going to do a great reset, you create the problem and you have the solution already. To me, that seems pretty much what they've been up to the last few years. This great reset thing too, by the way, that's been going on since 1992. This is not new. It's been going on for a long time. If one really wants to go read in it about it, most people won't have any interest, but this hard reset has to happen on all fronts. And like I said, there's good and bad to it. There's lots of good. There's lots of just awful. But somewhere in between is probably where we'll end up, which would be okay. Because like most things, too far extreme left or too far extreme right lead to the same authoritarian, totalitarian systems. Usually somewhere in the middle, most people can kind of see eye to eye and go, yeah, we can get along. We're not in that space right now, unfortunately. We're in the space of an extreme left policies being pushed on people with no evidence to support it. Lots of stories, lots of narrative, but no actual evidence. And that is hard not to reflect in the market. But we find some solace in the market, although we've seen lots of articles saying that there should be a pullback, is that all of these globalists that are pushing changes, they're in the market. They're in the market. Now, a lot have gone and bought farmland. A lot have gone and bought real estate. So and of course, commodities. So we see a lot of this copper. We see a lot of uranium. We see a lot more interest because we've been saying it before. If you want to be safe in times of complete chaos, I'm not that thrilled about holding cash. Once again, because I don't have a lot of core competency in the people doing it, running the show right now. And I have got a lot more confidence in the commodities that make everything we need for the future, whether it's uranium for nuclear power, whether it's copper for the electric power grid, whether it's vanadium for an energy source for the future, whatever it happens to be. We need all of these minerals. We need to find them, and we need to find them close to our society and civilization, because I think people, if you're paying attention to world news, we're not all in this together. So that kind of silly notion is the same kind of thing you would have heard someone in the 70s say, why can't we all just get along? It's silly utopian, nonsense. You have to be cognizant of the changes that are happening today in every aspect of your life. And if you're not, then that's fine as well. Don't have an opinion on it. Probably don't be in the market. Just do your job, do your thing, and obey. But for those that are critical thinkers, those who like data, who like and are really interested in what's happening in this great time of change, it's disconcerting, but there's lots of opportunity. There always is.
There always is, and it'll be interesting to see. I'll get your take on this as well. With it being election day in Canada right now and stuff, I would be surprised if there wasn't a change in the market based on who gets into power up here. Especially if it's a liberal government again, I would expect to see futures on commodities actually look really good, because you're Canadians to be reelecting the inflation party and the Liberal Party.
Yes.
I think you could see a move that way. But I'd be interested to know kind of your thoughts as well. Do you think we're essentially left with two options? It'll be the Liberals will get back in similar position they had before. Conservatives might sneak it in a similar position to the Liberals had before. But do you think there'll be much of a change in the short term markets in Canada off of the back of that, or what do you expect to see?
I mean, there could be a perception change. I mean, because people think, oh, they're voting conservative, but voting conservative is not voting conservative. It's not even remotely conservative. You're voting for pretty much the same as the Liberal Party. You're just getting Justin out, which is to me, yeah, you have to. I mean, he's not competent. I mean, I'm just going to say it flat out. He's just not, and he's openly says things like, I don't know, or I don't care about monetary policy. I mean, you can't have someone running anything if that's like saying I run a bank and I don't care about finance. Like, what? Like, I don't follow numbers. I don't like numbers. Like, it's total insane. It's utter nonsense. Yeah, I can't understand math. It just makes no sense to me. That's not a leader. That's not and unfortunately we've moved away from what a notion of what a leader is. And this is part of the problem when you have these types of pushes in ideology is, the thought of what a leader is, a competent person who actually leads their people. That's gone. Like, I mean, it's in Canada, that's been gone for a long time. But you know what? I think the market reflects, I have to be careful. He has a good chance he's going to win. I mean, there's a good chance he's going to win. People in Canada have been spoon-fed, state propaganda for decades and decades. It's government-funded media, and no one would disagree with that. And if you do disagree with that, then you just don't read the news, because even the news will admit that. That's the notion that, oh no, but we're the good guys. It's like, yeah, I don't think you are. You're not. So it's a very, very strange time, and everything is up in the air. And I don't see long term that there'll be too much of a difference. Aaron O'Toole and Conservatives are all for FDA and big pharma, which I don't think is a great thing. They're all for any globalist type of approach for Canada as well. So they're not really on the major themes. They're not really that far off. Can there be a spike in perception because, oh yeah, conservative? Yeah, but once again, it doesn't mean anything. Most people that are conservative today are not. They're not conserving anything, and few have no interest in history, tradition, or anything of that nature. They're all just following in line with the same narrative, and then just everyone accepting that that's true, and which is interesting because one should always question, why do you think the things you do? Why do you have why does it make sense that this is? Oh, we live in 2020. Like I hear that all the time. Oh, this is the 2020s. People, don't think like that anymore. No, that's happened all throughout history. People have had all sorts of bizarre concepts and ideologies and whatnot, and they didn't work. So, I mean, you just need a larger time frame of human history to look at things to go, we're not terminally unique. We're not sitting in a time where progressives are like, we're so enlightened. Like, no, these times have happened before. I mean, this is nothing new. So
we've seen this movie before.
Yeah, this move has been done a number of times before. Universalist movements. But once again, that's more of a political talk, and you can't subtract the political from the markets because they're tied together. But I wanted to kind of touch on too, because Desert Mountain Energy is one in the news, and I'll just keep on reiterating, I'm not selling any of this. And I mean, I'm not going to pick on people in different forums, but I scroll through some of them once in a while. Usually they're terrible, but that one's not bad often. But I mean, people will have anonymous accounts where they'll post like, I'm an oil and gas expert, and this is what I found. No links to anything, no evidence, no nothing. And then people will post things like this. And I just think this happens in social media every day. Oh my God. And actually that just reminds me, someone sent me an article yesterday talking about all of these pro hockey players that are gay. And we're talking, I won't even say because I don't want to get in trouble, but big names, lists of them. So I was like, oh, well, I don't really care, but okay, I'll read the article. It's in the Vancouver Straight. So by the way, if you want to go look, this is going to give you a bit of a sneak peek of the quality of journalism going on. They cited The Onion for the story. Yes, they did. Their evidence for this article was The Onion. So if anyone wants to go look up what The Onion is, it's a satirical news site that writes hilarious articles that are jokes. It's kind of like citing the Babylon Bee, which we've actually seen a lot of leftist progressives quote them saying they actually believe this. It's like, no, it's a satire. It's a joke. So if you can't even be bothered to look up what the onion is on Wikipedia to source a document before you write it, you'll get a job at CBC.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make friends again. I don't care. But you know what? This is the times we live in, and it's shocking. It's silly. But we see this, and this is the one thing I always reiterate to people. If you just want to put a little bit of time, if you want to see an article, whether it's from Forbes, BNN, CBC, from whatever BBC, you look to see what the links go to. Yeah. So if they're quoting something, where does the link go to? If they're quoting a journal of something, where does that link go to? Look and see what that paper is. Is it actual data? A good chunk of the time, those links go to nowhere. It isn't real. It's not anything. It's garbage. It doesn't mean anything. If it does, then what's that data? So, when I'd have arguments or discussions with people, it's like, just take me to the CDC website and show me the numbers. Yeah. And then go, no, I don't want to do that. I'll show you this article from CNN. It's like, I don't care. Like, CNN's nothing. Show me on the where the data is, who gave it to you, and what's it look like. Most people don't want to have that conversation because they don't know where to look. But that's what you should do. Then you could have a no-name person who has a blog that's uncovered something and go, oh, look at all these hyperlinks. Oh, and they actually go to data. Then that's real. Yeah. And if you've got a Wall Street Journal with no hyperlinks, no nothing, a couple of quotes, all right, that's an op-ed. So that's just kind of a key kind of hint for people. If you want to see how to critically think, how to evaluate your news, that's a pretty good starting point.
Yeah, and it's one to look at with that Desert Mountain Energy story as well, because like you see in a lot of these online forums and stuff, you can see someone post like what seems like a well thought out, cohesive, like, yeah, I'm a scientist and this is what I found and this is why this. Then you go look at that person's account and it was made 2 days ago, and the only post they have is the same copy pasta that they've put into 6 different subreddits or different pages on the forum or wherever you're looking at. But you see it all the time, and it's stuff for people to be aware of, because if you're not critically looking at the information and looking for your own confirmation bias, going into something and trying to see what the actual truth is. Like the best way to do research is to not try to prove yourself right, but to try to find the actual facts. Because you get caught up. Yes. It's very easy to read something and say, well, that supports what I'm thinking, so that must be right. So you have to take a step back and remove yourself from your own bias when you're looking to find the actual truth in these things as well. And spend a little bit of time just actually researching it, rather than just reading a headline and saying, well, that must be it. That must be true. Because it's very easy to get caught up like that. And then you end up thinking a lot of pro hockey players are gay because the Onion said that they were.
The Onion said so. Yeah. No. And also have a sounding board. Like, especially if you want to have an opinion on something. We're in a day and age where people are like, my opinion, I should be able to voice my opinion. It's like, well, we should actually enforce a lot more shaming out there, because people are voicing opinions that are just absolutely ludicrous. And we have a platform for them. And yeah, everyone should have their opinion on stuff, but also you should take it with a grain of salt. Most people don't have any idea what they're talking about in most things. And they're just reiterating things that they'll find online and not wonder, where is that source? And that could be pro or against whatever position you're in. You have to be very careful today, because the ways and means that they use and manipulate information is insane. It's very powerful. And also, the wording, that's the key. And I've mentioned it before. One day I'd like to hold like a whole little session on reading fact check stuff. It's a whole lesson in propaganda and semantics. They'll even admit the fact check that they just did. They'll admit the one thing that someone claimed. They'll say, well, it's true, but this and this, so overall it's false. You go, no, hold on, no. So I won't get into that today, but it's amazing when you read these things and you realize, no, they're agreeing that that's true, but people have now misunderstood to go, see, I told you, fact check showed it was wrong. It's like, no, it didn't. I don't know what you think you read. So yeah, we've got a message here from Mark as well. Greetings. I believe in DME. Patients will be rewarded. I actually agree as well. We look at things in years. I have confidence. Will the stock go up and down? Sure, it might. Like I said, and I'm on record, I'm not selling and I'm buying more. Because I have a long-term focus on this. Am I concerned with supply chain issues? 100%. Yeah, we've been talking about it for months. just as I was for NG Energy, which I'm a fan of too. I think GasX, that stock is going to do well. It's a time issue. It's oil and it's gas. Mostly it's gas. Sorry, not oil. They have oil, but it's mainly gas. You can see what's going to happen there. It's happening in South America. A lot of these companies are going to end up doing very well. And do I want to go find other companies to shift short term for 3 months or 4 months to make a gain or return? That's not my optimal strategy.
Yeah.
That's not what I like to do. Other people can enjoy it, go nuts. I'm not knocking it. It's if you've got a full-time job doing this, go do it. Go have at it, enjoy it, have fun. But for me, it's let's find some companies, believe in the management teams, see what they're building, and listen to them. And if you trust in them and their expertise in the 40 years, the 80 years, like combined work they've done, then you have confidence in them. And then that's what you're investing in. And that's the way we look at things. And once again, the naysayer would say, but in the short term that, we have to wait longer and the expectations are lower. Yeah, they were. But I'm not, why do I care? I'm not selling. I'm not selling it to move into something else. I'm investing in a company long-term. So if it pulls back, then I'll buy some more of it. And that's very different than if it was just you're wildcatting, or you're out and looking for, a greenfield stories in mining and you didn't hit. It's we've got good data. There's lots to work on there with Desert Mountain Energy, and I'm happy to stay on side with it, but it ties everything together that we've kind of been chatting about.
Well, it does. Yeah. I mean, it's an important overall theme to pay attention to, because if you don't think this is going to happen closer to home, I would say the UK is pretty close to home. That's, when you're thinking about Western nations, that's close on. Canada's inflation rate was at 4% just in August alone. Yeah. So they're important overarching themes. Supply chain issues are going to be a problem, but finding ways to beat those supply chain problems, companies that are going to do well in spite of that. Iron phosphate's one that we love to talk about when it comes to food shortages. That's a huge one to pay attention to. You hear about fertilizer plants in the UK shutting down because of costs. That just lines up perfectly to everything that they're doing over there. So there's companies that you can position yourself into that have strong teams that are doing something really, really cool and are positioned to have a way to weather the storm of supply chain issues, rising prices, and navigate the choppy waters that there is in a really successful way.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing to I'm glad you brought that up. Is like I've talked for years that there's going to be this horrendous pullback. It's going to be the Roaring '20s and the Great Depression rolled into one. Yeah, we're already in it, but it's only getting started, unfortunately. And that's not me being doom and gloom. We need to be realistic and try to get other news sources out there. Try to look at other things around the world, because you're going to find very different than if you just turn on your TV and look. You're going to be shocked at the total collapse of South Africa that people don't realize. It's a total disaster there. You'll look at what's happening in Australia with the totalitarianism there. It's shocking. And this is not to scare people, but you need to broaden your horizons and start looking at what's happening out there in the world in a larger scheme of things, and stop relying on your mainstream news. Go look at actual, and once again, you can easily verify things. If it's on YouTube and it's a video, you can see it happening, or you can see the person speaking and telling you something, or just check the links and see where they go. It's not difficult. So Ariana phosphate, yes, we touched, I'm glad you brought that up. That food is going to be an issue. It is 100% going to be an issue. And that's a great defensive play with a huge upside when we're facing the chaos that we're going to be facing moving forward. Skylight Health has seen a good jump in the last week as well. Healthcare in the US, you better believe there's going to be stuff coming down the road for that.
Oh yeah.
And there's going to be a change coming up there. It has to be. It's sooner or later, there has to be. And their model, that holistic model, is more in line for aligning overall people's goals and expectations. Let's make some money, but let's also work on actual health. So we're confident in what we've got because we've got real companies that have real management teams that are also there to weather storms. It isn't just fly by night. I'm buying, a cryptocurrency and hopefully it goes up and then I'll sell it. That's not what we do here. And it's not knocking it. It's just that's some other strategy. Go do that. This is finding real companies with this, with this anticipation of what's coming.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're absolutely right there. And I know we're getting up on time here, so we'll probably leave it here for today, but we'll continue this later in the week, guys, and just keep these themes in mind, keep it in the back of your head when you're developing your model, when you're coming up with your process, picking your companies, and stay positive though as well. That's the important thing to hit on, is that we're talking about key themes and key issues, but the main important thing to kind of pull out of that is finding a way to combat that, and companies that are going to be steady throughout these changing economic and global times. We're in the middle of a massive shift. It's scary and exciting, but there's way more opportunity out there than you think that there is. So really exciting times ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, clear your head, get some exercise, get some fresh air, eat some proper food, all those things, put the apple on the teacher's desk, all those things from the past we know we should be doing. But have a good mindset for the rest of the day, and try to focus on solutions rather than get overwhelmed and overburdened by all the negative. But hey, let's get at it. Let's see what the next few days brings us.
Absolutely. Have a great one, Andrew. We'll chat to you later in the week.
Have a good one. Guys.